Just by the you're running down to be running.
And it's funny.
This is the same genuine just inside down to be you're running. This is the same genuine just by the you're running down to be running.
And it's funny.
This is the same genuine just inside down to be you're running. That act's a mile away
and really
that act's a that act's a mile away
and really
that act's a that act's a mile away
and really
that act's a arrows in that act's a mile away
getting
that act's a that act's a mile away
and really
that act's a arrows in that act's a mile away
getting
that act's a that act's a mile away
and really
that act's a arrows in that act's a mile away
getting
that act's a that act's a
old Ghost Shepherd
that act's a that act's a
old Ghost Shepherd
that act's a that act's a
old Ghost Shepherd
that act's a that act's a
old Ghost Shepherd
that act's a That act's a mile away. That act's a mile away.
getting
That act's a that act's a mile away. That act's a mile away.
getting
That act's a this is the same genuine just by the you're running down to be running.
And it's funny.
This is the same genuine just inside down to be you're running. This is the same genuine just by the you're running down to be running.
And it's funny.
This is the same genuine just inside down to be you're running. This is the same genuine just by the you're running down to be running.
And it's funny.
This is the same genuine just inside down to be you're running. Use that acts up.
old Ghost Shepherd
Use that acts up.
old Ghost getting
That acts up.
Hello everybody, my name is Reagan, and I came from the land of Leavenworth, and originally I am from Germany, and man, I just had a really long journey, getting here, and you might be wondering, why I'm so tiny, and why I'm sitting on this chair. Well, I will explain to you a really big story, of how I came to the land of Maple Valley, and also how how my story began and how I got cursed and all that stuff. And also, before I was a teddy bear, I actually used to be this big, gigantic grizzly bear that would roam the land of, it would roam the land of, eastern Washington, especially, where Leavenworth and where Snoqualmie is. And I used to eat a lot of fish and salmon and all that stuff. And I will tell you guys the story right now. anyway, my story begins, 500 years ago, back when, Germany was connected, to Asia and all that stuff. And it could have been a little bit more longer. But anyways, I was basically, in the forest and I was, I was roaming around and I was running and I was just trying to look for like, some food, like some salmon, and sometimes I even eat like berries and all that stuff. And so I remember, I was just like running and running, all over the forest, and I ate a lot of food, and I got like, and I remember, I caught, 99 pounds of salmon, with my bare teeth, and so as I was done eating the salmon, then I headed back, to my cave, and I started, sleeping and all that stuff. And so I was always doing that, for 500 years, and also swimming in like the river, and then also hibernating in the winter. But then one day in the 2000s, there was this witch, that came, and unfortunately she did not look very nice at all. Like she unfortunately had like purple skin, and she had like a lot of zits on her face, and she had this evil laugh, and she was going like I'm going to, and anyway, what happened was then she casted a spell on me, and unfortunately what happened was then all of a sudden, the forest, around like the snow, around all the forest of like Snoqualmie and everything, it started splitting up, and so the country of Germany / Bavaria started splitting up as well. And unfortunately, all of the land the ground, started shaking and everything, and so then I had to run, to the other side, and I was starting to run, and then the witch kept on chasing me, going, I'm going to get you, Big Bear! And so, unfortunately, I had to keep on running and running, and then all of a sudden I took this very big leap into the other land, and I unfortunately I ended up in Alaska. And so then, the witch, she got away and all that stuff. And so anyways, unfortunately I kind of got that wrong. I was kind of in Bavaria / Germany, but then, I crossed through Russia, and then of course, I went down to Alaska, and then of course, I went through Canada as well and went into their forest, and they also had like a lot of beautiful wildlife as well. And so anyway, then after the final journey of me like running in the forest and all that stuff, I then ended up, in Leavenworth. And how I got there, I was just like walking, with my big bare paws, and then all of a sudden I heard this, and then I said a bad word in German, and I was like, and I said like, what the? And so then, then I climbed up this hill, and then I saw a lot of, Bavarian people in Bavarian clothes, dancing, and they were having a good time, and they even had like their guitars and everything like that, and they had a lot of other musical instruments, and then all of a sudden, all the smell started coming, through my big bare nose, of all the sausage, that was there. And so anyway, as I saw, I saw with my big bare eyes, all the big sausage that they had and I think those things that they call hot dog buns, I believe. And so anyways, as I saw the hot dog buns, then I started going like, this is really good. And so then I kept on going and going, and following like where the smell was. And so, and unfortunately, then I saw a lot of humans as well, Unfortunately, though, in the past, living 800 years, I always saw a lot of bears, that would attack humans and eat them and eat, like, their blood and their bones and all that stuff. But I decided not to do that, just because, I always like to stick to things like fish and other things like that. But anyway, little did I know, when I was there, there was this girl, that was with her boyfriend, I believe, and they got off, like, this really big, vehicle, I believe, and it was very huge. And so anyways, they started, exploring, Leavenworth together, and they even went to a bar, I believe, and then they ate some sausages, I believe. Then they also ate a lot of chocolate and sweets and other and maybe some cake as well. And so, anyways, then what happened was then it was like started to become late at night and all that stuff. And unfortunately, she got separated from her boyfriend, I believe. You know, to the point where like the same witch, you know, that was chasing me, unfortunately got to her, you know, and kidnapped her. And unfortunately then she casted a spell on her as well, you know. And unfortunately the spell, I don't know what the spell really was, but the spell basically was that she would know everything, you know, that was German, you know, meaning I believe it kind of meant, you know, that she knew like how to speak German, I believe. She had like she was like really smart, I believe. And also, I think most importantly, you know, unfortunately, like she couldn't really age either, which was kind of bad. And so, anyways, you know, what happened was she lost contact with her boyfriend. And so what happened was then, you know, it was started to snow, and it was snowing a lot. And unfortunately, a lot of snow got piled up on her. And so what happened was then I saw her, you know, sinking into the snow and everything, and I had to save her, you know. And so I started, you know, running, you know, a lot, and I started running, and so then I used like my big bear paws, and I started digging her up, you know, and I was digging and digging and digging and digging, and so then, you know, then I saw her, and then I made some bear noises, and then I remember I grabbed her, I believe, you know, grabbed her very softly, and I pulled her out, you know. And unfortunately then it was too late, you know, because then as I pulled her out, you know, then she saw, you know, the same bus that was leaving, and unfortunately she was left in Leavenworth, and it was cold and everything. And then, and yeah, and this next part would be even more interesting as well. And so anyways, then as I got her out of the snow, you know, and as I saw like her bus, you know, leave Leavenworth, you know, then, you know, I then found a way, you know, to put her on my back. And so then what happened was then I started running, you know, to the bus, you know, and it kept on snowing and snowing. And so then I started looking left and right and trying to find like the nearest forest that was around us. And so then I kept on running, and then I saw more rivers and lakes and all that stuff. And so then I kept on going straight, and then I just kept on running. But then I had to make sure, you know, the girl was still like on my bare back and all that stuff. And so luckily for me, you know, I was able to find a cave. And so I was and so anyway, you know, I went inside the cave, and I set her down, you know, very gently, you know. And so anyways, you know, and so me being very nice, you know, I then went to the river, you know, and I got her some fish, and then of course I maybe got some berries for her as well. And so anyways, you know, then as I got her food, you know, then she got up, and I don't know, like she just had a very beautiful and very stunning face, I think. And she also had a face of a princess as well. And then like she asked me if, you know, if I saved her, and so me not saying anything, I then nodded yes. And then I remembered like she gave me like a big hug and all that stuff. And then of course, you know, I then lifted one of my bear arms up and gave her a hug as well. And then she asked me if I was going to be able to get her home or not. And so then I also nodded yes. And so anyways, the next day, you know, we started going through more parts of the woods and everything like that. And unfortunately there was this, and then of course, you know, the witch, you know, was watching us, you know, with every move that we were making. And then all of a sudden, you know, without me really hearing about it, she then went like, "Oh, I'm going to find you. I'm going to make sure that girl never goes back home to her boyfriend or goes back to civilization." And so, anyways, you know, then as we got more and more into the forest, you know, then there was these other animals, you know, And for some reason, too, the witch gave her these powers where she was able to communicate with forest animals, I believe. Not just with bears, but she was able to communicate, like, with the wolves, and then she communicated with the rabbits, and then with eagles and hawks, and then sometimes with frogs, and with mooses, I believe, as well. And so she communicated with them, and all this other stuff, and so, anyways, and so, yeah, and so she was able, to keep herself, warm, and all stuff. I think that was kind of mostly because, like, I was around her, and all that stuff, and so, and yeah, like, she was just, finding ways to really survive in the forest and all that stuff, and then we just kept on going and going. And then the very next day, we then got up, and then we started, running through the forest again. And then after, the girl, ate, her breakfast and all that stuff, then she hopped on my back, and then we started, going through the forest. And for me, since I was so excited, then I started, like, running and all that stuff. And then she was going like, woo! Woo! And I kept on going, like, really fast and all that stuff. And then she wanted to, like, slow down and everything, but then, I just really couldn't slow down. And then all of a sudden, she looked up, and then, like, she saw, a rainbow that was going through, like, the sky, Homish River and all this stuff, and all through the woods and everything. And, like, she really thought it was, like, maybe the most amazing thing, that she's ever seen, I believe. And so anyways, then as we were going through the forest, then we ended up, back, like, around the Cedar River, I believe, and through the forest that I think that was around, I believe, like, around, like, Issaquah or something like that. And so anyways, we were, like, we got, like, so close, to her home and all that stuff. And unfortunately, I was in the forest and all that stuff, and then finally, as she got to the suburbs, I believe, she then got off my back, and then she said thank you to me, and then I made a bear noise, and then I let her pet me on my head for the very last time. But unfortunately, though, the suburb that she went to unfortunately turned out to be a complete hoax, because then what happened was, then as she got to her house, the evil witch was waiting for her, and unfortunately, like, she sent, like, a lot of evil green wolves at her, and unfortunately, I heard her screaming, and unfortunately she got kidnapped by the witch. And so what happened was then I heard her getting kidnapped, and then I saw, like, her, and then I saw the witch, flying away, and so then, I knew what I had to do, I had to try to save her, and so then as I kept, running, and I just put the pedal to the metal, with my bear paws, and, and making bear noises and all that stuff, and I was just, like, fuming and steaming, and I just knew that I had to save her, in a lot of ways, and so then anyways, then I saw her going into another forest and all that stuff, but this forest, unfortunately, wasn't a very nice forest, and unfortunately it had, like, a lot of thorns and a lot of, bear traps and everything, and it was just, like, not good, and so then I had to, like, climb and claw through all the thorns and all the branches and everything, and then I had to use, like, my big bear teeth, to just, just to, like, claw at them and make, like, big trails for me. And then, of course, I started hearing, the witch laughing, all like, and so then I kept going, and then of course I saw her purple castle, I believe, that was hidden, I believe, like, around, like, the very, very deep part of Issaquah Highlands, I believe. I don't know how it was there or whatnot, but unfortunately, though, I went in there, and so then as I went in there, then I made this really humongous bear noise, and then I started, fighting the witch, and all that stuff. And so then I made more bear noises, and then I just, kept on throwing a bunch of bear slaps, and then I even jumped in the air, and then unfortunately she tried to throw a bunch of magic balls at me, and even some magic fireballs that were very deadly and very venomous and all that stuff. And then there was times where she even tried to throw like rattlesnakes, but luckily enough I squashed them using my bear paws. And so then what happened was then I saw the girl in the cage, and unfortunately she looked very sad. And so then what happened was then, like, I made another big bear noise, and then I grabbed the witch, and I chomped, and then I just started like shaking my head, and then I started biting her and chomping her, and then she got a lot of cuts, and she was going like, ah! 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 And so the witch got bit like 50 times and all that stuff, and then all of a sudden, the witch was completely dead. But unfortunately, though, little did I know, she then casted another spell that went bouncing off the walls, and then unfortunately, then the spell hit me, and then unfortunately, all of a sudden, I turned into a teddy bear, but then again, there was another spell that hit off the walls and then freed the girl and all that stuff. And unfortunately, then, she fell down and she got out of her cage, and the witch was dead. And so what happened was she then saw me, and then like she was really thankful, that I was able to save her life and all that stuff. And so she was able to escape from the castle. And then all of a sudden, the castle, started exploding in flames and everything, and unfortunately, unfortunately, she still had the powers that the witch gave her, and she couldn't age. But luckily, though, she then was able to, unfortunately, she was still in her old clothes back when she was in Leavenworth or something. So anyway, she was able to get some new clothes and all that stuff. And luckily, though, the witch also had this ancient money, but which I think in today's currency would probably be worth like $4 million or something, because it was that old. Anyways, she then was able to use that money to buy a new house that was in Issaquah, and then she was also able to buy new clothes as well. And the only bad part is she can't, unfortunately, age, so she's immortal, but she has like a really good job, and she works in the city called downtown Seattle, and sometimes too, she'll sometimes come back, and then right now she's trying to find a way to cure me and find a way to turn me back into a real grizzly bear again. I think she's also like trying to turn me back into a human as well, which I think would be even better. But also turning back into a bear would be fun as well. Yeah, so yeah, so right now I'm just in her house in Issaquah, yeah, that is just my story. But then one day, as she was heading off to work, then she looked at me, and I was like sitting like on her dresser, I believe, like on the top, and she said, my goodness, I haven't found a name for you yet, And so anyways, she then looked at me again, and unfortunately my face kind of stays very smiley, because I'm kind of cursed and I can't make any facial reactions, but then, little did I know, her favorite president was Ronald Reagan, and I believe in, and apparently, the California state animal, I think, is a grizzly bear, I believe. I could be wrong on that, But anyway, she then saw me and she was like, okay, I'm going to name you Reagan. And so then that's basically how I got my name Reagan, was because, Ronald Reagan was her favorite president, I believe. And so anyways, yeah, and so so anyway, from there she just went out the door, and even though I've been alive for 500 years, and you know, I'm glad that I'm able to live in this house, and even though I'm not a real grizzly bear and I'm just a teddy bear, you know, my 2018 New Year's resolution is to turn back into a human, even though I don't necessarily know what I would look like if I was a human. Hopefully I'd be tall and muscular. I mean, maybe muscular would be a good way to put it, you know, just because I just eat so much salmon and I exercise a lot, but I don't know, I could be very wrong on that. And so yeah, anyway, thank you all for hearing, you know, my crazy adventure, and I hope all of you have a very wonderful 2018. Anyway, bye-bye everybody.
same genuine just by the you're running down to be running.
And it's funny.
This is the same genuine just inside down to be you're running. This is the same genuine just by the you're running down to be running.
And it's funny.
This is the same genuine just inside down to be you're running. That acts a while away
and really
that acts up
That
that acts a while away
and really
that acts up that acts a while away
and really
that acts up arrows in that acts a while away getting that acts up that acts a while away
and really
that acts up arrows in that acts a while away getting that acts up that acts a while away
and really
that acts up arrows in that acts a while away getting that acts up that acts up
Don't rush effort.
that acts up that acts up
Don't rush effort.
that acts up that acts up
Don't rush effort.
that acts up that acts up
Don't rush effort.
that acts up that acts a while away that acts a while away getting that acts up that acts a while away that acts a while away getting that acts up. This is the same genuine just by the you're running down to be running.
And it's funny.
This is the same genuine just inside down to be you're running. This is the same genuine just by the you're running down to be running.
And it's funny.
This is the same genuine just inside down to be you're running. This is the same genuine just by the you're running down to be running.
And it's funny.
This is the same genuine just inside down to be you're running. You that acts up. Use that acts up. That acts up.